My name is Jacqueline. I was born in Charleston, South Carolina, raised on sweet tea porch swings. And the kind of resilience that doesn't come from privilege, it comes from being told no and pushing through anyway. I live now just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, in a tall, white colonial-style house on Woodhaven Drive with my husband, Daniel, and our three kids, Olivia, Max, and Rosie. For years, every summer was spent in Birmingham, Alabama, at my mother-in-law's grand estate. The kind of place that looks like it was imported from some old European village. All marble columns and boxwood hedges and rose gardens trimmed to obsessive perfection. But the centerpiece, the one thing the whole family revolved around, was the pool. It was sprawling, glittering, and cold as the woman who owned it. That pool was tradition. Every birthday, every Memorial Day, every 4th of July, same pool, same rules, same subtle hierarchy of who mattered and who didn't. I tolerated it because my kids loved it. They lived for those weekends. Max and Rosie cannonballing off the deep end, Olivia teaching the younger cousins how to dive. It made the rest of the family tension worth it. But last summer, Lindsay, my sister-in-law and Daniel's golden child of a sister, decided my kids were too loud for the family pool. Her exact words, and I'll never forget them, were, "Jacqueline, maybe you should take your kids to a public pool this year. The noise, it's just gotten to be a bit much." She said it like she was offering me shade on a hot day, like it was some gentle, well-meaning suggestion. But the message was clear. My children, my family, weren't welcome anymore. Not in their pool, not in their version of family. I stood there, blinking, smiling through clenched teeth while she sipped her lemon water like a bored duchess. I nodded politely and excused myself, gathering towels, shoes, floaties, and the 3 innocent souls I'd brought into this family. We didn't go back after that. On the drive home to Atlanta, Rosie was asleep in the back seat, still clutching the towel she'd refused to let go of. Max was quiet, goggles still pushed up on his forehead like he was waiting for someone to say it had all been a mistake. And Olivia, wise beyond her 10 years, leaned forward and asked, "Mom, why can't we swim there anymore?" Daniel said nothing. I said everything without saying a word. That night, I stared at our backyard. It was basic, an aging deck, patchy grass, a sad little grill. But I saw it for what it could become, not just a pool, a message. By the end of June, I was in talks with a landscaping firm out of Savannah called Huron and Oak Designs. They didn't just build pools, they created escapes, worlds, statements. I didn't flinch when they quoted me $142,000. I told them to start tomorrow. Over the next 5 weeks, I watched as our boring backyard was gutted and reborn. A saltwater pool went in, curved and sparkling, with a waterfall feature for Max to jump from. We added a stone patio, an outdoor kitchen with a built-in pizza oven, a fire pit, even a guest house tucked under an oak tree for visiting family, or the ones we liked, at least. When it was finished, I didn't just feel proud. I felt dangerous. We threw our first barbecue the following Saturday. I called it just a few friends, but the truth was I called everyone but Lindsay. Neighbors, Daniel's co-workers, the school principal, anyone with a kid, a smile, or a story. We had balloons tied to the mailbox, soft jazz coming through the poolside speakers, hot dogs on the grill, lemonade in mason jars, and laughter that echoed off the trees. Olivia ran the towel stand like it was a spa. Max flipped off the rock feature. Rosie floated in her flamingo ring like royalty, and I stood under the cabana, dressed in linen and holding a glass of Chardonnay, watching the empire I built from rage and retaliation. We didn't invite Lindsay, but I knew she'd come. Mother-in-law arrived first, fashionably late as always, in her silver BMW. She stepped into the backyard and froze. Her eyes moved slowly from the pool to the kitchen to the fire pit. She opened her mouth like she might say something, but nothing came out. She simply nodded, pressed a hand to her pearls and whispered, "My God, Jacqueline." Then came the Mercedes. Lindsay, she stepped out in designer sandals, sunglasses on, and an expression she couldn't quite control. The same face she wore at her wedding when she saw someone else wearing a white dress. Her jaw tightened. Her lips parted, but no words came. She walked in slow, took everything in, the kids, the pool, the music, the family laughing. She saw what I had done. She saw why I had done it. And I watched the color drain from her cheeks. Watched her turn pale, her perfect Botoxed face tight with fury and disbelief. She looked like someone watching her kingdom being taken by a rival queen, one she never saw coming. Revenge doesn't always look like raised voices or slammed doors. Sometimes it looks like a pool party. Sometimes it's built with stone tiles, twinkling lights, and the shrieks of children who were told they were too loud. She stayed for 30 minutes, barely touched her drink, didn't take off her shoes, and left without saying goodbye. I didn't stop her, because this wasn't just a party, this was the beginning. And now she knew. I don't get even. I get better. After that first backyard party, I knew things would never go back to how they were. There was a shift in the air, subtle but permanent. Like a door had been slammed, not with noise but with finality. You could feel it in the way people talked at brunch. In the way mother-in-law lingered just a little longer after dessert. In the way Lindsay pretended like the whole thing hadn't happened. But couldn't help looking rattled. She didn't speak to me that entire afternoon. Not even once. She clung to Mother like a magnet, whispering in her ear while her perfectly manicured nails tapped impatiently on her wine glass. Occasionally she'd glance over at the pool where Rosie was giggling with a dozen neighborhood kids, handing out popsicles and showing off her new float shaped like a unicorn, the kind of joy that used to belong exclusively to her backyard. But here's what Lindsay didn't understand. This wasn't just about a pool. It was about power. For years I'd swallowed her quiet condescension like bitter medicine. I let her remarks about my store-bought cupcakes slide. I let her smug little eye rolls go unchecked when my kids showed up with scraped knees and messy ponytails. I stayed in my lane, smiled politely, and let her reign from her Alabama fortress. But not anymore. That backyard party was my declaration. My line in the sand. And it worked. 2 weeks later, Daniel came home from work with a strange look on his face. He dropped his keys on the counter and rubbed the back of his neck. "You're not going to like this," he said. I braced myself. What? Lindsay's planning a cousin's weekend in Nashville. A whole family thing. She's rented a house, planned outings, even hired a private chef. I waited. She didn't invite our kids. That one hit like a punch. Olivia, Max, Rosie. The same cousins who shared Christmas mornings and Easter egg hunts. Who spent years building Lego castles and sleepovers on air mattresses. I saw red. Daniel looked uncomfortable. "She says they're too disruptive." I slammed the cabinet door. "No, she's punishing them for me." He hesitated. "She thinks you're trying to one-up her, that you're making a spectacle." I laughed sharp and bitter. She thinks I'm the problem? But I wasn't going to grovel. I wasn't going to explain or apologize or shrink. I was going to escalate. That weekend, I opened our backyard to everyone. I invited our neighbors, the moms from school, people Daniel barely remembered working with 5 years ago. Anyone with kids, lawn chairs, or an appetite was welcome. We had popcorn machines, snow cones, a local magician. I paid a DJ from Buckhead $900 to turn the backyard into a poolside dance floor. That summer became the summer of us. We hosted a movie night under the stars every Friday. Pizza parties on Tuesdays. I set up a lemonade stand just so the kids could learn about business and community. One night, Olivia said, "Mom, I like this better than going to Aunt Lindsay's." So did I, and I made sure the pictures got out. Every smiling child, every twinkling light, every happy adult sipping cocktails beside our glowing pool was carefully captured and posted. I tagged Mother. I tagged Daniel's cousins. I even tagged the local news anchor who followed me back after the last charity gala. The comments poured in. "This looks like paradise, Jacqueline. Can I come live with you?" "Wow, this is better than any resort." Lindsay saw it. I know she did. Because a week later, Mother-in-law started coming by more often. She claimed it was to check on the kids, but I knew the truth. She missed being adored. She missed the laughter, the joy, the feeling of relevance. And here, in my backyard, she still had that. One afternoon, she sat beside me under the cabana, fanning herself with a napkin. "You have such a talent for hosting," she said softly. "Lindsay's always been more private, more structured." Translation: Lindsay's boring and insecure. I nodded, gracious. But inside I was savoring it, sip by sip, bite by bite. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. A Friday afternoon in August. the sun hot enough to melt lip gloss. I just cleaned up after 20 neighborhood kids and was folding towels when I saw the blue Lexus pull into the driveway. Lindsay. She stepped out, heels clicking on the pavement, sunglasses too big for her face, jaw tight. Daniel was golfing with a client. The kids were inside watching a movie. It was just her and me. I didn't say a word. She walked right up to the front door and rang the bell, even though it was wide open. "We need to talk," she said flatly. I crossed my arms. "Do we?" She pushed past me into the kitchen. No greeting. No compliments. Not a glance at the art I'd chosen, the new backsplash, or the candles burning lemon verbena. "You're driving a wedge in this family," I actually laughed. "You told my kids they were too loud for the family pool." "Because they are. They're wild, Jacqueline. Uncontrolled. It's not personal." I took a step toward her, my voice low, steady. "You excluded my children from their own grandmother's house. That was deeply personal." She didn't answer. "You created the divide," I said. "I just built the better side of it." Her mouth twitched. Her composure cracked just for a second, the first sign of defeat. She turned toward the door but paused, her voice bitter. "Mother's thinking of hosting her birthday here." I told her that would be wildly inappropriate. I smiled, slow and sharp. "Tell her she's welcome. We'll have plenty of room. In the pool." She walked out without another word. But I knew the war had escalated. This wasn't just sibling rivalry anymore. This was blood. And I had no intention of losing. Mother's birthday fell on a warm Sunday in early September. She was turning 72, but you'd never know it by looking at her. She still wore that signature red lipstick, had her nails done weekly in a pale peach shade, and wore pearls to brunch like it was still 1963. She was the kind of woman who pretended to be neutral, but knew exactly how to wield power in subtle glances, carefully chosen silences, and the illusion of fairness. But make no mistake, she had her favorites. For years, that favorite was Lindsay. I used to try to win her over in the early days. When Daniel and I got married in Savannah, I went full Southern hostess baked pies from scratch. Sent handwritten thank you cards, even made place settings out of pressed magnolia leaves for Thanksgiving. I tried to belong, I really did. But it took me years to understand something fundamental. Lindsay didn't want a sister-in-law. She wanted a subordinate. She wanted someone who would compliment her shoes, nod quietly at her opinions, and thank her for passive-aggressive advice about parenting. When I didn't fall in line, she started seeing me as competition. So when Mother called me 3 days before her birthday and said, "Sweetheart, would you mind terribly if we had the party at your home this year?" Lindsay's been tense. I didn't hesitate. "Not even for a second. Of course, Mother, we'd be honored to host." I hung up the phone with a smile so tight it hurt. Daniel was in the living room, casually sipping his coffee when I told him. He raised an eyebrow, leaned against the kitchen island. "You're opening the gates again?" "No," I said, already pulling up catering options on my laptop. "I'm preparing the battlefield." I knew exactly what I was doing. We hired Fitz and Fig, a high-end Southern fusion caterer out of Charleston who charged $8,200 for an afternoon event. I picked an ivory and gold theme, elegant, regal, but not too pretentious. We had custom menus printed, floral arrangements delivered from a boutique in Savannah, and a jazz quartet from Nashville that played soft blues under the willow tree all afternoon. Everything was intentional. Every detail, a weapon dressed as decoration. Even the cake white velvet with lemon curd filling and edible gold leaf was designed to make Lindsay feel like she was attending someone else's coronation. The day of the party, the sun hung high and bright in a cloudless sky. The pool sparkled like a jewel. Kids darted in and out of the water with wet hair and sunscreen-smudged cheeks. Adults lounged under white umbrellas, sipping chilled wine, plates full of fried green tomatoes, shrimp skewers, and bourbon-glazed brisket. And then, as if the script had been written in my mind, Lindsay arrived. Cream pantsuit. No smile. No husband. No children. Just her. She stepped through the gate and froze. Her eyes scanned the scene, the tables draped in linen, the lanterns hanging from the pergola, the birthday banner hand-painted by Olivia, and I saw it, that flicker of panic, that tight breath she took when she realized just how outmatched she was. But it wasn't me who dealt the blow. It was Mother. She spotted Lindsay, opened her arms wide, and said loudly, "This is the most beautiful birthday I've ever had." Then she turned to me, kissed my cheek with a smile, and said, "Thank you, Jacqueline. You've made our family feel whole again." Whole, not just lovely or thoughtful, but whole. And she said it in front of Lindsay. That was the crack. I saw the way Lindsay's mouth twitched, the way her eyes darkened. She walked, stiffly, to the bar, poured herself a glass of Chardonnay, then made a beeline for me. "You've made it your mission to embarrass me," she hissed. I didn't flinch. I met her gaze, steady and cold. "No, Lindsay. You did that all on your own. I just provided a better stage." She leaned in, her voice trembling with quiet rage. "You think this makes you better? You think Mother actually loves you?" I didn't smile, but I didn't blink either. "No, but she loves her grandkids, and you made her choose." Lindsay stepped back like she'd been slapped. "You're destroying this family." I stepped forward. My voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. "I'm not destroying anything. I'm just refusing to let you run it anymore." And that was it. That was the collapse. She turned, left her half-empty glass on the patio table, and walked out, heels clicking like gunshots across the stone. She didn't say goodbye to Mother. Didn't acknowledge Olivia, who waved at her from the pool. She just disappeared through the gate. Alone. She didn't speak to Daniel for a month. When she finally reached out, it was through a cold, impersonal email. "We'll be taking some space from family events this year. Until things calm down." She unfollowed me on Facebook, blocked me on Instagram, sent a terse decline for the Christmas party invite. I heard through her cousin Jenna that she referred to me as toxic at a wine night in Nashville. Let her, because I had no intention of stepping back. I'd built my kingdom without her, brick by brick, dollar by dollar, invite by invite. I had the house, the pool, the family gatherings, the laughter, the warmth, and the one thing she could never fake: joy, the truth. She didn't lose because I was cruel. She lost because I stopped caring what she thought, because I stopped playing nice, because I decided that my kids, my family, my voice deserved space. And once she realized she couldn't bully or exclude me anymore, she ran. The queen of passive aggression had fallen off her throne, and I was just getting started. After the birthday party, the house was quieter than usual. Not from a lack of noise, my kids were still laughing, splashing in the pool, dragging in wet footprints across my tile floors, but from the eerie silence that comes when someone like Lindsay disappears. Not gone, not defeated, just waiting in the wings, scheming in silence. I knew her too well to think otherwise. She didn't show up to Sunday dinners, she didn't call Daniel. Not even a text to Olivia on her birthday, which was her favorite "look how thoughtful I am" moment. For a while, it felt like maybe she had backed off. That maybe finally the war was over. But then Jessica, Daniel's cousin with a mouth like a busted pipe, let something slip over sangria one evening. "Oh, and have you heard? Lindsay's trying to get your kids disqualified from the family trust. She's been talking to Mother about standards, academic performance, structured behavior, some clause about eligibility." I felt the glass in my hand tighten. "She's trying to cut out my children," I said flatly. Jessica blinked. "Well, I mean, she says it's not personal." I smiled, the kind of smile that makes people nervous. It's always personal when it's about your blood. That night, while my kids slept and Daniel worked in the study, I sat by the pool with my laptop open and my heart burning. She wanted to hit me through the back door, quietly revise the rules, rewrite the legacy to suit her vision of who was worthy. She thought she could manipulate Mother, lock my kids out of their future, and smile through it at Christmas like nothing had happened. She underestimated me, again, so I hit back, not with lawyers, not with confrontations, but with something far more dangerous: influence. I started planning a community fundraiser for a children's literacy nonprofit I'd worked with the year before. Nothing too fancy at first, just a few calls to women I knew through the Atlanta Junior League. A few business cards passed around at school drop-off, some emails to Daniel's higher-profile clients with kids. But the idea grew faster than I anticipated. Within a week, we had RSVPs from the mayor's wife, a local author with a best-selling parenting book, and a state senator who just adored community-led events. I organized a silent auction weekend trips to Savannah, private yoga lessons, signed guitars from Nashville artists. I ordered monogrammed thank you gifts for donors and branded every napkin and water bottle with the nonprofit's logo. And the best part? I invited the press. I called a journalist from the Atlanta Times, one of those eager young writers hungry for a headline with heart. She loved the story immediately. Loved the angle, a mother turning her home into a hub for generosity. Loved the optics of the pool, the kids, the community. Loved me, the woman who was redefining family legacy through acts of giving. 2 days after the event, the article went live. Local mother turns family home into beacon of community giving. Right there on the front of the Sunday features section, me and Rosie. Cheek to cheek, arms around each other, smiling beside the very pool Lindsay once called too loud. The piece praised our family's hospitality, our commitment to nurturing values. It highlighted our home, our children, our network. Not once did it mention Lindsay. But her absence was louder than any paragraph could capture. I didn't erase her, I just outgrew her. Mother called me early the next morning. "Darling, have you seen the article?" Her voice was giddy, full of pride. I said, "Sweet as honey, oh yes, it was a surprise to us too. My friends in Birmingham are begging to come to your next event. I've never been prouder. Thanksgiving, perhaps. At your place this year." I nearly laughed. In 12 years, Mother had never once suggested moving Thanksgiving away from her precious estate, not until now. "We'd be honored," I said. Truly. Then came the brunch. Daniel's family gathered the following weekend, an attempt, I think, to restore the illusion of unity. Lindsay was there. She'd returned, maybe thinking her silence had cleansed the battlefield, maybe believing she still had leverage. She wore a navy dress and a tight smile. She complimented the flowers on the table, passed the sweet potatoes, and avoided my eyes. Then Daniel's uncle, never one to read a room, piped up over coffee. "Jacqueline, that article, what a triumph. You've become the face of this family, haven't you?" I didn't respond. I didn't have to, because then came Mother. She dabbed her mouth with her linen napkin and said, smiling wide, "It's so wonderful having Jacqueline as the new anchor of this family." Anchor. That word split the table in half. Lindsay's hand froze on her fork. Her eyes flicked up, slow and seething. "Well," she said coldly, standing and letting her napkin fall to the floor, "maybe you'd all prefer if I just stayed away for good." Nobody said a word. Not Daniel. Not Mother. Not even Jessica. She left without another sound, heels sharp against the floor, the front door swinging shut like punctuation. And I sat back in my chair, lifted my sweet tea, and took a long, slow sip. Because revenge doesn't always arrive like a storm. Sometimes it builds gradually, like water rising behind a dam, quiet, patient. I didn't scream. I didn't plead. I let my victories speak for themselves, in smiles, in handshakes, in published praise. She tried to shame my children. I made sure they'd inherit a name too respected to ignore. She tried to push us out. I built something so radiant, so generous, so untouchable she disappeared behind it, and that day, watching her retreat, I realized what she feared most wasn't losing power. It was being forgotten, but I remembered. Because revenge, real revenge, isn't about screaming at your enemy. It's about building something so beautiful they can't bear to look at it. And knowing, deep down, they'll never be part of it again.